everyone, this is Chris. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the essentials that you will need if you're a beginner in scrapbooking or in card making, because it's very similar. We usually use the exact same products. So you may be overwhelmed by all the products that are out there, and I wanted to try to cut this into little segments and try to give you my point of view on how I began, and then you will start increasing your collections of stamps, I'm sorry, dies and papers and whatnot. So we're going to start from the beginning. Paper. If you're a card maker or even a scrapbooker, you will need at least, I would say, two types of paper. You would need some kind of paper that is heavy, at least if it's gram, because it's oftentimes in grams. It will be 110 grams, 120 grams, that's for your card base, which needs to be stiffer. And then you can use some lighter weight for your card fronts, which means if you're layering different pieces, you don't have to use heavy cardstock for this. For your card base, yes, heavy cardstock, and for your layering, it can be much lighter. It doesn't have to be thick. Copy paper, the one you put in your printer, I would not advise to use this. Maybe for some flower making, but not for card bases or even layering, because it's really thin. If you are drawing on it, it might go through. So I don't recommend using any kind of copy paper because it's too thin and flimsy. So after talking about paper, because there are so many brands, and depending on where country you are, I'm not going to give you any name for paper, but it's just recommendation that heavy cardstock as a base. Now I'm going to talk about, because we're talking about paper, about cutting and cutters. And I'm using a Stampin' Up. I'm giving you some names, but you don't have to have exactly the same name. I just want to show you mine because I think it's handy. So it's a Stampin' Up, and what I like about this product, first, it's very sturdy. I know I'm gonna have it for years. And also here, you've got two little slits here that it moves up and down. The first one here, I changed them, but it's exactly the same. One is for cutting, and the other one is for folding and pre-scoring. Not folding, but it's for scoring your paper. So it's a 2-in-1, and I really like it. And of course, it's a 12 by 12 cutting paper cutter, and you can extend it to put your 12 by 12 paper. So this is really handy. It cuts very well, and what I usually do is I buy my blades separately. I buy them by bulk, 4 or 5 or 10, I mean, every time, because you will need to replace the blades. So whatever cutting tool you're going to buy, make sure you will be able to buy separately the blades, because you will have to change them, and depending on what you're cutting, you will have to change them often. So that's really handy. There's also a storage pocket here where you can put all your blades in here. I like this brand, but Friskers also is a good brand. You've got so many, but be careful of being able to buy the blades separately. What you will also need if you don't have this kind of tool and you can't score is a scoring board. So this is a score pal, but again, you have many brands. You've got memory keepers. Very handy because it's really precise, and if you have a lot of folds, this is really, really good. Very sturdy. It's a 12 by 12, or it can stand a 12 by 12 paper. So if you're making box or envelopes, that's going to be good, or even bows, you can use this as well. And it comes with a bone folder. I've got somewhere the bone folder on my table because I use it all the time. So that's a good tool. Now I'm going to talk about glue a little bit. I'm in love, literally, with my glue gun. This brand is AdTac. You can find these very easily on Amazon. I'm usually talking about Amazon because all of you are from different countries, so it's easier to find, but maybe in your local craft store you will find it. What I like with this one is that you've got a fine tip. So I really need that because sometimes I do need to glue some intricate stuff. And also it's a dual temp glue gun, so I have a low and a high temp. It's really useful. I use very often the low temp because sometimes you've got very thin paper or felt, or something very small and you don't want to burn yourself too much. So this is very convenient. So if you can find one of these, that's good. Whatever the brand is, that'll do fine. Also, I wanted to talk about this. If you don't have this kind of glue gun and you already bought one, these little things, I think, I'm not sure, but I think they're from Memory Keepers, and they're in silicone, and you put them on your finger. They're sold in one pack. I think there's 4 or 5, and they can be in any color, blue or pink, I think. And it's just made out of silicone, and it protects your fingers from the hot glue, and nothing sticks to it. I mean, your glue, you can take it away, use it after and over again. That's really handy, so I would recommend using this if you already bought a hot glue gun. Or also, what I used to use in the beginning was a silicone spatula. There it is. Also made out of silicone. This is for kitchen. It cost about $2, and your glue is not going to stick, and you can use this instead of using your fingers if you want to press down something onto your glue. So something in silicone. I'm going back to cutting. I would recommend using good scissors that you will only use for paper. It's like your sewing scissors or a fabric scissors. Just keep these for fabric. The same thing for your scissors for paper. Keep them for paper. Don't go and cut some foil with this, or it's going to damage them. So if you put a good amount of money into your scissors, try to protect them as long as you can by only cutting something soft. Is not going to damage them. And I would recommend using some smaller scissors if you're doing some intricate cutting. Small scissors are the best than bigger scissors. So I think for cutting, that's good for now. I was talking about glue, so I need to go back to glues. There's, again, tons and tons of glues out there. So one of the glues that I like are, if I don't use my hot glue gun again, are liquid glue like Tombow. This one is the regular one that dries permanently, directly. And you've got this one that is removable. So it's not going to be too sticky at first, but it will eventually stick completely to your paper or cardboard. That's a good one. So they're both from Tombow. It's Liquid Mono Aqua. Yeah, I forgot the name. So you've got a very fine tip on one end. Let me take this off. You've got a very fine tip on one end, and you've got a big tip, like a brush tip or chisel tip on the other side, which I don't really very often use, but it can be handy if you've got a big surface to glue. It dries fairly quickly, so if you're not sure, and if you're a beginner and you start to you put your papers a bit crooked, go with this one because it will dry permanently anyway. So that one would be a good option. It's the green and white one. The drawbacks of liquid glue is that it may wrinkle your paper a little bit, and on the other side of your paper you might see it, that it's wrinkling or buckling. So that's why I don't use liquid glue that often. Otherwise, you have these little tape runners or glue dot runners. I used to use them, whatever the brand is, but they're very handy. They're small, but they're quite expensive. When you really look how much you have inside, whatever the brand is, they're really expensive. And if you're doing a lot of scrapbooking or card making, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So after a few years of using this kind of tape runner, I end up using ATG. I'm not sponsored by any of the brands I'm talking about, just to be clear. And I really love it because you can put really big rolls in here before changing, and it takes the time. And also, you don't have to buy the brand. I think it's 3M, not sure. You can buy off-brands on a lot of sites, Amazon, but you just Google off-brand ATG refill. And I buy them by bulk, I think by 24. And it's really worth your money. It's big compared to the other one, but very useful. And you will see a lot of people using this. And honestly, I use that because it's really cheaper than using anything else. Then we're going to talk about inks, because that's a big part. And if you want me to do a special tutorial on inks because we could talk a lot about inks. There are different inks on the market, different brands. So whatever the brand is, this is very useful. You will use this with also some stamps, and I'll get into that in a minute. So here I have distress inks. You can have Memento, you can have, there are so many other brands. Just make sure the most versatile one you will use more often are dye-based inks, which is a distress ink and Memento. That's what you usually use in scrapbooking and card making. It dries really quickly. You cannot emboss with these, whatever the brand is. Maybe Versafine you can emboss because it's a pigment ink, but otherwise these, no, just stamping and that's fine. So you've got the big ones, Distress, and Memento does also the little dewdrops or cubes. I personally prefer the small ones because for the price of 4, you get 1. I mean, 4 colors in a pack. Usually they're sold by 4. It's almost the price of a big one. So, especially if you're beginning in crafting, take the small one because you will see you will have even more use with the smaller one than the big one. And I will do probably a video on that. So inks are important. Dye-based inks, that's usually what you will go for. Then you will need some stamps. So any kind of stamps, whatever the color is, rubber stamps, clear stamps, what are there, wooden mounted, they will all do fine. If you don't know what to buy, depending on what you're doing, try to buy stamps or dyes, we're going to get into dyes later on, that you know you're going to lose a lot. Let's say that for me, for example, I'm pretty much into flowers. So I'm going to buy a lot of stamps that are on flowers because I know that I'm going to use them over and over again. Also for Christmas I use, because even though it's for 1 month, you are going to use these over and over every year because Christmas comes back every year. So it's going to be Santa Claus, it's going to be a reindeer, a Christmas tree. So be careful not to buy just because you saw a tutorial and you love the stamp. If you don't know if you're going to use it that often, maybe think about it twice before buying it. That would be a good advice to give you. So like for example, if it's sports, if it's soccer or anything else, make sure that you're going to be able to use it over and over again. Unless maybe you want to sell your cards and you know that they sell pretty well. So yeah, Father's Day sentiments are very good. Happy birthday, get well soon, Father's Day, Mother's Day, you know, these kinds of sentiments, they're great. Same thing for dyes. You're going to use dyes, and they can come again in different ways. Thin-lit dyes, big dyes, very thick one. Whatever the dyes are, they're going to be very handy. I'm not sure you can see that very well. So I have a big one here, and I bought the smaller in here. They've got different sizes. Again, buy the ones you know you will use again. For me, it's flowers because I know I'm going to use it on cards a lot. If you don't know which brand to use for your dyes, I would recommend using the Big Shot because it can take any kind of brand. All the brands of dyes will fit and will go perfectly in the Big Shot. It will cut any brand. Also for the embossing folders, that's a good thing to have on hand. It's handy. Maybe you will not use them as much as the dyes, but again, whatever the brands are, you've got Doris, you've got Sizzix, you've got Tim Holtz, the Big Shot will take any kind of embossing folder, dyes, even the big thick one. I would go for that brand. If you want me to do a review on the Big Shot, no problem, and show you how it works, but you've got already tons of videos on that. Just tell me on the comments below and I will do if you want to. You will need also, with the inks, you will need some Versamark. This is a very special ink because this ink is used in combination with your embossing powders. So these again come in a variety of colors and brands. You've got also metallics, gold and silver and pewter and so on. If you don't know which one to buy, I would recommend maybe using the very fine one or fine embossing powders, because if you want to stamp a sentiment and it's really thin, if you have a fine embossing powder, your design will be better, will look better than if it's too chunky. Okay, you won't have as much details. So if you're not sure, buy something where it says fine embossing powder or even ultra fine embossing powder, and you will have to use Versamark. And Versamark, it lasts me for ages, and when it's dry, the only thing I do is I put some glycerin on it, and you can find glycerin in maybe pharmacies or sometimes in the health food stores or the health food section, and it's natural, it's glycerin, and you just need to put a few drops there and that will be good to go. You don't even really need to buy a re-anchor for that. And then what else would you need? Talked about these. Maybe that's more optional, but I think that that's not optional. Hey, I forgot. You will need an embossing, a heat tool. And a hairdryer will never work with your embossing powders because a hairdryer blows a lot of air but doesn't go to very high, doesn't go up too high in temperature. This one will blow less air but is going to be really hot. So if you want to use embossing powders, use a heat tool like this one. Again, all of this can be found on internet and Amazon and all your crafting stores. And also things that I like to use quite often are some embellishments like rhinestones, you know, pearls, flat back pearls that are already glued, so you just need to take them off and you've got glue on the back. This is also very handy. You've got bows, you can have little buttons. As for embellishments, they don't cost a lot of money. And yeah, that's mainly it. We could talk about Mod Podge, depending on the country. I know that I didn't talk about Mod Podge, and somebody is going to say, oh, Mod Podge. So Mod Podge is another kind of glue. You've got in matte, you've got, what is this one? I've got this one here. So this one is glossy. I love glossy varnishes. So it can be used as a varnish or as a glue. It's really good, but you can't find this in all the countries. So this is why I didn't really talk about it, even though I like it. It's just to make things glossy, and I wouldn't use really Mod Podge as a glue because it's expensive, or more expensive than Elmer's glue, for example. PVA glue, use always PVA glue because it dries clear. Make sure when you buy a glue, even though it can be white when it's liquidy, but when it dries it has to be clear. You don't need to see the glue at all. So I think I've talked about, I'm looking around me to see if I forget anything, but I don't think so. I had my cheat sheet paper. I think I've talked about the main things you should have when you're a beginner in scrapbooking or card making. If I forget anything, please leave me your comments below. I know that there were a lot of tutorials already on YouTube on, the basics for card making, but I was asked to do one and I thought, hey, why not? There are always new beginners coming in and I've got new followers every day, so thank you very much, all of you. And I would also say just quickly that for those who are discovering me, I do make videos in English and in French. Usually they're the same. And so don't be surprised if you receive a mail written in French. It's me, but you will have, usually you have their video in English first. And I'm actually starting a new YouTube channel. I'm not going to give you the link yet because there's not much on it, but I will eventually separate both channels. I mean, both videos. There will be one channel dedicated to French and one channel dedicated to English speaking people, so you won't receive mails that you don't want. I think it will be easier for everybody. It's going to be more job for me to do, more work, but I think it'll be better. So bear with me a little bit more, please. It's going to take me quite a while to put all the videos that I have on this channel to the other one, because I've got over 160 videos I think by now. So it takes a lot of time to upload each and every one of them. But as soon as I think it's good for you to go, well, you can go and check it out. So I will give you the link. I will update you on that. And since that time, thank you very much for being here and subscribing. If you like this video, please give me some thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell button to get all the notifications. And also share on social media because it helps my channel a lot. Thank you very much. Take care and see you soon. Bye-bye.